After I caught my wife and my dad sleeping together, they told me, yeah, we love each other. Keep the marriage going. So things stay stable. You'll adapt. So I adapted and exposed their affair to the entire family and took them both to court. Hey, Reddit! Thought my life was solid. Good job, good marriage, good family. Then I came home early one day and found out just how wrong I was. Before things completely blew up, let me start from the beginning. I'm Isaac, 34. I'm an industrial design consultant. We work on prototypes for manufacturing clients. Assembly line components, safety gear, custom tooling, the kind of stuff nobody notices until it breaks. Good money, steady work. Boring as hell, according to my wife Vanessa. She'd been telling me that for months. You're so stable it's suffocating. You never take risks. You're satisfied with good enough. She always said it like she was performing for someone. Usually her best friend Betty, who would nod and say, "Girl, you deserve more." A real man leads. Betty was a leech, one of those people who turns life into content, constantly narrating everything for imaginary followers. And Vanessa absorbed every word like gospel. Still, I tried. I stopped at her favorite Thai spot and picked up her usual, extra crispy noodles in the Pad CU, thinking maybe we'd have lunch on the back patio like we used to, before our marriage became something she wanted to upgrade. I pulled into the driveway around 11:30 and froze. My dad's car was parked 4 houses down, not in front of our home, just far enough away that he thought he was being subtle. I recognized it instantly. He'd just had it detailed and wouldn't shut up about the ceramic coating. Showroom glossy, but the engine was cold. He'd been there a while. My dad had always been around. Too around. Fixing things I didn't ask him to touch. Showing up uninvited. Getting oddly possessive over little moments. Once he watched our son, Owen, playing in the yard and said, "The kid's got my eyes," with a tone that made me uncomfortable. I'd brushed it off at the time, but standing there, looking at his car, that same crawling wrongness returned. Inside, the door was unlocked. The TV was on, volume barely audible. 2 coffee mugs sat on the table, one with Vanessa's lipstick, one untouched. Something in me went very, very still. I set the food on the counter without calling out. Something in my body knew better. As I walked toward the stairs, I heard voices. Hers first, soft and breathy, followed by a low murmur I recognized instantly. My dad's voice. My heartbeat pounded in my throat. I told myself there was an innocent explanation. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Then I heard a sound from Vanessa, a soft, breathy laugh she only made when kissing. My hand moved before my brain did. I pushed the bedroom door open, and the world dropped out from under me. They weren't just sitting close. My dad was half on top of her, one hand on her waist, her fingers tangled in his hair. Their mouths were on each other, slow, familiar. A kiss that was not new, a kiss that came from practice. They jerked apart as the door slammed against the wall. Vanessa scrambled upright, hair messy, cheeks flushed. My dad, on the other hand, moved with irritating calm, like I'd interrupted something he believed he had the right to be doing. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. He stood a little straighter, buttoning the top of his shirt, and said, "We need to sit down." Not, "Oh my God," not "this isn't what it looks like." Just a command, like this was a meeting he'd scheduled. I said nothing, just walked downstairs, every step echoing like it belonged to someone else. They followed, silent. At the dining table, I sat on one side. They sat together on the other, as if presenting a joint statement. Vanessa started with a trembling voice. "What you saw, I didn't want it to happen like that. There's history. Your dad and I, we knew each other before we met. We got close again, and..." I cut in. "Are you sleeping together?" My dad answered instantly. "It's more than that. We're in love." Something in my chest cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a clean split. Vanessa added quickly, like she could soften the blow. "We didn't want to hurt you." Intent as a shield. She always did that. My dad leaned forward, the project manager of this disaster. "We can handle this as adults. We stay married legally, but separate our personal lives. It avoids a messy divorce, maintains stability for Owen, keeps the peace." He even smiled, like he'd solved something instead of detonating it. "You'd be free to date," he continued. "She'd move out eventually. We'd keep everything private. There doesn't need to be scandal or drama." Vanessa nodded like this was reasonable. That's when I understood. He genuinely believed he could manage this. Like a family schedule, like a broken fence, like a problem that needed his intervention. He'd controlled my mother for 18 years. He'd hovered over my life ever since. And now he thought he could control this too. I stood, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "I'm not part of your solution. I'm the problem you caused." Then I walked out of my own house before I did something I couldn't undo. I ended up at a park 6 blocks away. Sat on a bench watching people walk dogs and push strollers. living normal lives while mine burned. Had it been happening before the wedding? During? After? Was I ever anything but a placeholder while they continued whatever they'd started long before me? And then the thought that had been stalking me finally caught up. Owen, 3 years old. My dad always around him, always volunteering to babysit, always showing up when I wasn't home. The kids got my eyes. The world tilted. I shoved the thought down, breathing through the panic. By 4, I was at my buddy Lucas's place. Told him everything. He listened without interrupting, jaw tight, then said we needed to start documenting. I needed a lawyer. I needed to protect myself before they rewrote the story. Lucas worked in risk management. He thought in terms of threats and mitigation. Right then, that was exactly what I needed. I spent the night on his couch, eyes open, replaying every memory I'd ignored. The next morning, I called my mom, told her I needed 20 minutes. It was about Dad. At her house, I told her everything. She went pale, then furious. Said he'd cheated on her and now on me. Said she was calling him right then. I stopped her. Told her reacting now would only give him ammunition. That he'd paint me as unstable. That I wouldn't let him control the narrative again. She asked what I needed from her. No carrying messages, no negotiating. If anyone asks, send them to me. And if Dad shows up, don't let him in. Then I told her the truth. Neither of us wanted to say aloud. He doesn't feel guilty, Mom. He feels inconvenienced. Her face hardened with recognition. Before I left, she apologized for not protecting me from him. I told her it wasn't her job anymore. This time, I was protecting myself. Over the next week, Vanessa and my dad kept reaching out. Long messages about how we needed to talk, how they understood I was hurt, how family could get through anything if we stayed mature. I didn't respond. Saved everything. Screenshots, timestamps, forwarded it all to Lucas. Lucas came through with a lawyer, Patterson, a family law shark with a reputation for hitting hard when needed. We met Friday. I brought everything. Timeline, messages, the whole mess. Patterson skimmed it and said 2 things. 1, the house was mine. I'd bought it before the marriage and the prenup protected it. 2, I needed a paternity test. That second part felt like a punch to the ribs. I'd been avoiding the thought, telling myself I was paranoid, but Patterson laid it out plainly. The timeline, my dad's behavior, the strange comments, the way he hovered around Owen. He said I needed certainty. I went back to Lucas's place that night and barely slept. Kept replaying every moment with Owen. 3 years old. Loved trains and dinosaurs. Called me Dada. Looked at me like I hung the moon. The way he'd grab my hand crossing the street or fall asleep on my chest during movies. 1,000 small moments that felt real because they were, at least on my side. The kids got my eyes. Next morning, I took Owen to a pediatric clinic, told Vanessa it was a routine checkup, got a DNA sample, and sent it to a lab Patterson trusted. Paid extra for rush processing, sent a second sample to another lab, just in case. Meanwhile, Vanessa was posting nonstop. New beginnings, living my truth. Strong women don't apologize for wanting more. Betty was glued to the comments hyping her up. You're glowing. This is your season. Real ones know. Made me want to throw my phone. I saved every post. 8 days later, Patterson called. No softening, no easing into it. Owen wasn't mine. 0.0% probability. The second lab confirmed it 2 days later. I sat in my car in the office parking lot, staring at the paperwork until my knuckles went white against the steering wheel, processing the fact that my dad hadn't just betrayed me, he'd tried to replace me. I'd spent 3 years raising his son, thinking he was mine. Diapers, midnight feedings, first steps, every moment built on a lie. I drove to an empty park and sat on a bench until the sky went dark. Thought about Owen's first word, Dada. Thought about teaching him to stack blocks. How he'd grab my finger when he was learning to walk. All of it felt real. None of it was. For an hour, I let myself feel it. The loss, the theft, the violation of having 3 years of fatherhood ripped out from under me by 2 people who watched me live the lie they created. Then I called Lucas, told him everything. He went silent for a long moment, then said we needed to meet, that I shouldn't be alone. We met at a diner. Neutral ground. Lucas asked what I wanted to do. I told him everything. Paternity fraud, divorce, full scorched earth. I was done being quiet. He told me to take one night to be absolutely sure, because once I started this, there was no going back. I told him I'd been sure since the moment I opened that bedroom door. They'd made their choice. Now I was making mine. But first, I needed to look Vanessa in the eye and tell her I knew. That night, I texted her. Said I'd come by the next day to grab a few things and talk. She responded immediately. She'd been hoping I'd reach out. She missed me. Maybe we could work something out. I didn't reply. The next afternoon, Lucas came with me. Vanessa answered the door looking like she'd been preparing for a reunion. Hair done, makeup perfect, smile ready. She asked if we could talk alone. I said Lucas was staying. This wasn't that kind of conversation. We sat in the living room. Owen was at daycare. I didn't want him anywhere near this. I told her the DNA results were back. Told her I knew Owen wasn't mine. Told her I knew exactly who his real father was. Her face drained to white. Then she started talking fast. Too fast. She could explain. It wasn't what I thought. We could fix this. And then she said it. I couldn't tell anyone. That stopped me cold. You're not scared of losing me? You're scared people will know. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Nothing. I stood. Told her my lawyer would be in touch. She had 30 days to move out of my house. If anything was missing or damaged, I'd pursue it. She started crying. Said she never meant for it to happen like this. That she still cared about me. I told her I didn't care. Her feelings now weren't my problem. She'd made her choices. Now she'd live with them. Lucas and I left. No words in the car. None needed. That night I called Patterson and told him to file everything. Divorce, paternity fraud, removal from the birth certificate, the works. He warned it would get messy. Vanessa would fight. My dad might interfere. I told him I didn't care how messy it got. I wasn't the one who lied for 3 years. Patterson said he'd have the documents ready by the end of the week. The first person to crack wasn't Vanessa. It was Betty. 2 days after I told Vanessa I knew about Owen, Betty showed up at my mom's house. No idea how she got the address. Don't care. She knocked at 8 in the morning wearing this mask of concern, saying she wanted to check on me, that Vanessa was worried, that maybe we could all sit down and talk. My mom called me immediately, asked if I wanted her to handle it. I said yes. She went back outside and told Betty to leave. Said this was family business and Betty wasn't family. If she came back, it would be harassment. Betty tried the sympathy act. Vanessa was struggling. Everyone made mistakes. She was just trying to help. My mom said Vanessa could struggle with her choices on her own time. Betty needed to step off the property. Betty left, but an hour later she posted a vague status about toxic families, grudges, and supporting your friends. I screenshotted it. Saved it. Meanwhile, Vanessa had dropped the curated perfect wife act and shifted into rant mode. Betrayal, growth, standing in your truth, all while Betty cheered her on from the comments. Own your story. They can't handle your power. Real ones stand with you. Lucas pointed out every post was evidence. Patterson said he'd already started documenting her entire feed. Then my dad tried his own angle. Showed up at my office. Reception called to say my father was in the lobby. I told them to send him away. I don't have a father. An hour later he emailed. Long, rambling nonsense about how he never meant to hurt me, how feelings aren't convenient, how we were still blood. I forwarded it to Patterson without replying. The next morning, the divorce papers were served to Vanessa. Certified mail, formal, clean. Patterson included everything. Adultery, paternity fraud, notice to vacate within 30 days. He attached the deed showing I was the sole owner and the prenup defining all premarital assets as separate. She called me 16 times, 11 voicemails, each more frantic than the last. You can't do this. My lawyer says this isn't legal. You're destroying our family. I didn't answer. Saved it all. That night, my cousin Julie called. She and I had always been close. She said the family grapevine was going nuts and wanted to make sure I was okay. I gave her the short version. She said if I needed anything, she was there. 3 days later, everything shifted. One of Betty's friends from their group chat, a woman I'd never even met, messaged Lucas through a mutual acquaintance. She'd been in the chat when Betty accidentally posted a screenshot of their strategy session. Said Betty deleted it within minutes, but she'd grabbed it first because it felt wrong. She sent Lucas the full image. The screenshot was exactly what I imagined. Betty and Vanessa planning how to spin everything. What to post, who to contact, how to paint me unstable. Betty wrote, "Get ahead of this. Post about emotional abuse, plant seeds." Vanessa asked, "What about the paternity thing?" And Betty replied, "That doesn't go public. Ever. Keep it vague." Lucas sent it to me. Then to Patterson. Patterson called within an hour. "This is gold," he said. "Proof of coordination, deceit, manipulation, ammunition for every hearing." Betty didn't know we had it. She was still in the comments under Vanessa's posts, acting like the loyal best friend. Patterson waited almost a week before moving. Let Betty keep chirping. Then he sent her lawyer a letter. Not about the screenshot, just a polite summary of her potential civil liability, interference with marriage, coaching deception, possible subpoena. The next day, Betty's lawyer called Patterson. Betty wanted to cooperate. She'd provide chats, timelines, everything. Over the next few days, her lawyer sent over her cooperation statement, Betty claiming Vanessa manipulated her, that she'd tried to talk Vanessa out of the affair, that she'd only wanted to support her friend. Once Patterson had her story in writing, He sent her lawyer the screenshot we'd been holding the entire time. Silence. Long silence. Then a defeated, "We'll revise." The next day, a new statement arrived. This time, honest. Yes, she'd known. Yes, she'd strategized. Yes, she'd coached Vanessa on how to manage optics and hide the paternity issue. The full flip took nearly 2 weeks, but watching her scramble was worth it. I told Patterson to keep everything. Betty had never cared about Vanessa or me, just herself. Meanwhile, Vanessa posted a polished growth statement. Mistakes, healing, protecting her son, choosing peace, no specifics, no accountability. I didn't respond publicly. Instead, I wrote one simple paragraph and sent it to key family members. Vanessa admitted to an affair with my father. Paternity testing confirmed Owen is not my son. Divorce proceedings are underway. Please direct questions to my attorney. I sent it to my mom, my aunt, my uncle, a few cousins. Then I turned my phone off and went to the gym. Lucas texted later. Mom had told the family calmly, directly. The response was overwhelmingly in my favor. My dad had already been uninvited from multiple gatherings, but not everyone was ready to face it. 2 days later, my uncle Rich, my dad's younger brother, showed up at my office. Wanted to talk. I let him in. He sat down and launched into a speech about keeping family matters private, about forgiveness, about how I was tearing the family apart. He said my mom was being harsh and I needed to show maturity. I let him finish. Then I stood, walked to the door and opened it. Privacy protected them. I'm done protecting them. He tried to add something about me being too young to understand complexity. I just held the door open, waiting. He left. That weekend, Vanessa tried one last angle. She showed up at Lucas's place where I'd been staying. Bangs on the door, crying. Said Betty fed her bad advice. Said she wanted to fix things. Lucas opened the door, looked at her, and said, "We're discussing paternity fraud and adultery, not feelings." Then he closed the door in her face. She stayed outside crying for 10 minutes before leaving. "She's not remorseful," Lucas said. "She's losing." He was right. By the end of the month, Vanessa had moved out. Took clothes, some furniture. Didn't trash the place. I changed the locks that night. Patterson told me our first hearing would be within 8 weeks. Vanessa's lawyer was already pushing for alimony and child support and planning to contest paternity. I told him to use everything we had. Vanessa's lawyer tried to get the paternity results tossed, claimed I'd obtained them without proper consent, argued that Owen deserved stability, that removing me as his legal father would harm him. Patterson dismantled it. He showed the samples were obtained legally and that Vanessa had committed fraud. 3 years of knowing the truth and hiding it. He argued Owen's right to know his biological father outweighed any stability built on deception. The judge agreed and ordered a second court-mandated test. Same result, 0% paternity. But things didn't end there. The judge raised the issue of equitable estoppel because I'd acted as Owen's father for 3 years. She needed to determine whether my legal obligation should continue despite biology. Both sides were ordered to brief the issue. Patterson argued fraud voids estoppel. I'd been deceived from day one. He included everything. The affair timeline, Vanessa's messages with my dad, the Betty coordination proving she'd actively maintained the lie. Vanessa's lawyer argued I'd bonded with Owen, that the child's interest came first. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Patterson was relentless. He showed how Vanessa had deliberately hidden the truth, how every memory I'd built with Owen was manufactured under false pretenses, and how Vanessa hadn't confessed. She'd been caught. A week later, the judge ruled. My name was removed from the birth certificate. My legal obligation ended. She made it clear the ruling was narrow and based entirely on Vanessa's fraud. Had I known earlier, or had Vanessa been honest, the outcome might have been different. Vanessa still tried to argue for support, claimed I'd acted as father for 3 years, that Owen knew me as dad. Patterson hit her with everything. The adultery, the deception, the paternity cover-up, the Betty group chat. The judge didn't buy a word of it. Told Vanessa she'd created the situation. I owed nothing to a child who wasn't mine and whom she'd lied about. Vanessa cried in court, but the judge dealt in facts, not tears. My dad didn't show up to a single hearing. Stayed away. Let her sink alone. A week later, he tried a new angle. His lawyer sent Patterson a settlement offer, $25,000 in exchange for a signed NDA. I wouldn't discuss the affair or the fraud, wouldn't speak to family, wouldn't pursue anything further. Complete silence for cash. Patterson read it to me, asked if I wanted to consider it. I laughed. Respond with one sentence, "The truth isn't for sale." Patterson said the offer now became evidence of guilt. If my dad tried anything else, we'd use it. Meanwhile, my mom had been steady and matter-of-fact with the family. No dramatics, just the truth. He cheated on me, gaslit me, and now he's done it to his own son. Same pattern, same man. People believed her. They'd seen him do it before. My aunt ran into him at a grocery store. She told him he wasn't welcome at family events anymore and that what he'd done was unforgivable. He tried explaining, talking about how feelings are complicated. She cut him off. There's nothing complicated about sleeping with your son's wife and letting him raise your child. You're a coward. Then she walked away. Within 2 weeks, he was uninvited from every family gathering for the rest of the year. Holidays, birthdays, everything. But he wasn't done. He tried one more thing. And this is when I finally saw the full shape of who he was. He called one of my clients, a manufacturing VP I'd worked with for 2 years, told him he was concerned about my mental state, that I was under stress, that it might affect my work. The client found it strange and called me directly. I kept my voice calm, told him my father and I were estranged due to personal matters I wouldn't discuss professionally, that my work spoke for itself. He apologized, said he'd had no concerns, that the call had felt off. We ended the conversation fine. But I sat there stunned. This wasn't desperation. This was control. My dad had always operated the same way. Hovering, inserting himself where he wasn't needed, managing everything around him. He'd controlled my mom for years. He'd tried controlling me my whole life. And once that stopped working, he shifted to undermining whatever I'd built without him. I called Patterson. He said this went beyond family drama, that it was tortious interference. I told him to send a cease and desist immediately, making it clear that any further attempt to contact my employer or clients would trigger legal action. Patterson drafted it that afternoon. My dad didn't try again. Meanwhile, Vanessa's online persona continued collapsing. Gone was the curated perfection. Now it was posts about struggle, single motherhood, adversity. Betty was still in her comments, cheering her on, but the engagement had tanked. People were catching on. Betty attempted her own cleanup, posts about loyalty, supporting friends, how she didn't deserve the hate. Nobody bought it. Comments tore into her for manipulating the situation and making everything worse. She locked her account within a week. 7 months after I'd filed, the divorce was finalized. It had dragged on because Vanessa kept contesting details and her lawyer kept filing pointless motions, trying to buy her time in my house. Patterson shut each one down with the prenup and documentation. In the end, she got nothing from the house. Nothing in alimony. Nothing except the consequences she'd earned. After the divorce, my dad tried reaching out one last time, sent a letter saying he knew I was angry but hoped we could talk someday, that he'd never stopped being my father. That blood was thicker than mistakes. I read it once, then burned it. I sent one text. You stopped being my father when you slept with my wife. Blood means nothing when it's poisoned. Then I blocked his number, his email, every avenue of contact. Lucas asked me once if I felt guilty for cutting him off completely. I said no. Guilt requires caring. And I didn't care anymore. He'd made his choice knowing exactly what it would cost. Several months after the divorce was finalized, I started seeing someone. Her name was Rachel. Met her through work. She was a project manager for one of our manufacturing clients. Smart. Funny. No social media presence. No drama. A normal person living a normal life. We took it slow. She knew I was divorced, but I didn't dump the whole story on her right away. When I finally told her, she nodded. Said everyone had baggage. Asked if I was still angry. I told her I'd moved past that I'd had good people around me. Lucas, my mom, a lawyer who gave a damn. We kept dating. Things got serious. She met Lucas, met my mom. Everyone liked her. Meanwhile, Julie kept me updated on my dad without me asking. Said he'd moved west to Colorado, trying to start over somewhere nobody knew him. I'd settled into a routine. Work was good. Got promoted to senior consultant. Pay raise. Better projects. But Owen stayed with me in ways I didn't expect. I'd see kids his age at the park, and my chest would tighten. I'd hear a kid call out Dada in a store and turn around before remembering. Some nights I'd lie awake thinking about his 3rd birthday party, how he'd laughed when I'd pretended to be a dinosaur, how he'd hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I didn't talk about it much. Lucas knew. Rachel figured it out eventually. She asked once if I'd ever want to see Owen again. I said I didn't know, that the kid deserved better than being caught between his mother's lies and my grief, that maybe someday when he was older and could understand. But not now. Rachel and I moved in together after dating for most of a year. My house. She loved it. Said it felt peaceful. We painted the living room together, replaced furniture piece by piece, made it ours instead of mine. We hosted a dinner party that winter. Small gathering. My mom, Lucas, a few friends from work. Rachel's sister. Good food, normal conversation. My mom pulled me aside while Rachel was in the kitchen. Told me I looked happy. I was. By the following spring, I proposed to Rachel. Nothing fancy. Us at home on the patio. She said yes. We set a date for the next year. But before the wedding, something pulled me back into their world one last time. A few months after we got engaged, Vanessa reached out, not through text or social media, through Patterson. Her lawyer contacted him asking if I'd be willing to meet, said Vanessa wanted closure. Patterson asked if I wanted to respond. I said no, that I'd moved on. He told her lawyer. They pushed back, said Vanessa was struggling, that it would be good for everyone to have a conversation. Patterson said no again, firmly. Her lawyer tried once more, said my dad wanted to be part of the conversation too, that they both needed this. That changed things. Not because I wanted closure, because I wanted to make sure they understood exactly where things stood. I told Patterson to set it up. One meeting, neutral location, Lucas present. They got 30 minutes, not a second more. But before that meeting, Vanessa tried something else. She found Rachel on social media and sent her a message. Long thing about how I'd been through trauma, how I might have painted Vanessa unfairly, how Rachel should know the full story. Rachel showed me the message immediately, asked if I wanted her to respond. I told her no, that Vanessa was desperate, that the best response was no response. Rachel blocked her, then said, we should probably hear whatever they wanted to say. Close the door completely. I agreed. Called Patterson and confirmed the meeting. Patterson arranged it for a Saturday afternoon a couple weeks later. Conference room at his office. Vanessa, my dad, their lawyers, me, Lucas, Patterson. I walked in at exactly 2. Vanessa looked different. Hair shorter, no makeup, dressed casual. She looked tired, like life had ground her down. My dad looked older, grayer, thinner, like guilt or whatever he was capable of feeling had finally caught up. We sat. Patterson laid out ground rules. This was not negotiation, not counseling. A courtesy meeting I'd agreed to. They had 30 minutes to say whatever they wanted. Then we'd never speak again. Vanessa went first. Said she'd been working on herself, that she'd realized how much she'd hurt me, that she couldn't change the past but wanted me to know she was sorry, that she hoped I'd found peace. I didn't respond. Listened. My dad went next. Said he'd made terrible choices, that he'd betrayed me in the worst way, that he understood if I never forgave him, that he carried it with him every day. Again, I didn't respond. Waited. They both looked at me, waiting for something. Forgiveness, maybe. Understanding. Some sign that their apologies mattered. I looked at both of them, took my time, then I spoke. I'm not here for closure. I had closure the day the divorce finalized. I'm here to make sure you both understand something. Vanessa, you didn't cheat. You committed paternity fraud. For 3 years, I raised a child I believed was mine. Changed diapers, walked the floor at night, taught him to walk, read him stories, loved him, all while you knew the truth. All while you let me live in a lie. You didn't do that because you were confused. You did it because it was convenient. Because having a stable husband who didn't ask questions was easier than facing what you'd done. Vanessa opened her mouth, but I kept going. And you didn't confess. You got caught. If I hadn't come home early that day, you'd still be lying. Still letting me raise his son. Still treating our marriage like performance art while you ran your real relationship behind the scene. Your apology means nothing. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you lost your comfortable life. I turned to my dad. And you didn't betray me. You tried to replace me. You slept with my wife, fathered her child, then watched me raise him for 3 years without saying a word. You stood in my house, played grandfather to your own son, gave me advice about parenting, about marriage, all while knowing you'd destroyed both. You even tried to sabotage my career when things fell apart, called my client to plant doubt about my mental state. Because that's what you do. You control. You manage. You insert yourself into everything. And when someone steps outside your control, you try to tear them down. My dad flinched at that. Guess he didn't think I knew. You talk about carrying it with you every day. You should. Because I carried it for months. The confusion. The betrayal. The question of whether anything in my life had ever been real. You put that weight on me. Now you get to carry your own. My dad looked down. I stood up. Looked at both of them. I'm not angry anymore. I'm done. You both made your choices knowing what they'd cost. You chose each other over honesty. Over me. That's your right. But don't expect me to help you feel better about it. I don't forgive you. I don't hate you. I don't care. You're strangers who happen to share my history. Owen's not my son. That's biology. But losing him wasn't easy. I spent months thinking about him. Missing bedtime routine. Hearing his voice in my head. Mourning what I thought we had. That grief doesn't change the reality you created. He's your responsibility. Yours to raise. Yours to explain to when he's old enough to ask questions. Vanessa started crying. My dad stared at the table. One more thing. If either of you contact me again, I'll pursue harassment charges. If you show up at my house, I'll call the cops. If you try to involve mutual friends or family, I'll get a restraining order. This is the last time we speak. Ever. I looked at Patterson. We're done here. Then I walked out. Lucas followed. Lucas. We drove back in silence. Rachel was waiting. Asked how it went. I told her I'd made it clear where things stood. That it was over. She said I'd done the right thing. Lucas texted later. Said they'd looked shell-shocked. I slept better that night. Not because of revenge, because of finality. Next morning, my mom called. I walked her through it. She said I'd handled it perfectly. The next few months moved fast. Wedding planning, work projects, life filling in the spaces their absence had left. About a year and a half after that meeting, Julie called me. Said Vanessa and my dad had imploded. Vanessa wanted marriage. My dad said no. They'd split messy in public. Vanessa posted about it. Betty showed back up briefly, and Vanessa turned on her too. Posted old messages. Betty's reputation destroyed locally. My dad had moved again. Arizona this time. Another fresh start. Julie asked if I wanted details. I said no. That it was exactly what I expected. That people who build relationships on lies eventually turn on each other. A month later, Rachel and I got married. The wedding happened on a Saturday in April. Small venue, 50 people. My mom walked me down the aisle. Rachel looked beautiful. Simple dress. Being herself. We said our vows. Short. Honest. Promises we planned to keep. Then we kissed and everyone cheered. At the reception, my mom gave a toast. Said I'd faced betrayal and chose growth. That she'd never been more proud. Lucas gave a toast too. Said I'd shown him what real strength looked like. That he was honored to stand with me. I stood up to thank everyone. Looked around the room at the people who'd shown up. People who'd earned their place through actions, not biology. I said family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. About choosing each other every day even when it's hard. I'm standing here because I learned to walk away from people who saw me as convenient. Because I stopped trying to make liars comfortable and started building something real. Thank you for being the family I got to choose. For proving that the best revenge isn't making people suffer. It's being happy without them. Everyone raised their glasses. Rachel kissed me. We celebrated. That night at the hotel, Rachel asked if I'd thought about them at all today. I told her the truth. Not once. 4 years ago, I'd walked into my bedroom and found my wife and my father together. Found out the child I'd been raising wasn't mine. Found out everything was built on lies. Now I was married to Rachel, living in a house we'd made ours together, surrounded by people who'd earned their place through loyalty, not manipulation. Vanessa and my dad had tried to break me, tried to make me accept their version of reality. They'd failed. Not because I'd fought back viciously, because I'd walked away and built something better. They had their choices, I had mine, and mine were infinitely better. The end. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.